Take this book with you and get to know what true love is. And with your donation, help us change lives.
Honor for me to be with you guys. All glory to God. Um, Before I start with the testimony, I think it is very important to highlight that 40-day fasting, it is a grace. You know, it's not something that one can just willingly do. In fact, it's Jesus that does it in us. He gives us the invitation and we merely say yes. Then he take care of the rest. I have done 2 fastings and what I have learned is that every fasting is different, meaning that Christ takes us to different deserts depending upon what it is that we need. In my first fasting, if I could describe it, I would describe it like if Jesus took me up to the mountains, right? And it was me, Peter, and the other 2 disciples, and it was with the glory of God. Everything seemed pleasant, no difficulty. Um, Everything was consolation. In all the 40 days, it was a constant learning, a constant fulfillment of God's love in my life. However, um, once I finish the first fasting, uh, I got too comfortable, right? And I lack in fasting Wednesdays and Fridays, which is, that consistency to maintain the house clean, right? Um, and then once I started lacking, I also prayer started to decrease. And so called other things, right? Like daily mass and weekly confession and daily adoration. All those things started to suffer, and so did my spiritual relationship with the Father, right? And so I was called to, rejoin. I was called uh, to return, right, to the house of the Lord. And he invited me once again to do another 40 days of fasting. He invited me to do it over Lent. However, I just had a feeling. I knew that it was going to be different. It was going to be hard. It was going to be difficult. And so, like many of us, I postponed him. And, I kept going. I felt trapped in this maze where I felt like my spiritual life was a circular motion. I felt like I wasn't growing. I felt like I wasn't moving anywhere. And so, I surrendered to Jesus and I'm like, if you really want to do it, I know you did it in me the first time, but I just have a feeling this time is going to be difficult. And Jesus said, well, it is. And so you know, I decided to do the 40 days of fasting with with Mission Ruah. Um, it was the night prior uh, to for the day that it was supposed to begin. But that same night prior, I knew deep down that God has given me the grace to do it. I knew deep down that He was calling me to do it. But yet, I rationalized things and I was like, well, God, if you really want me to do it, then you better give me a sign or something. You know what I mean? Like I was expecting God to come from heaven and tell me, I don't know, with an angel or something. I was expecting something supernatural. You know what I mean? To like confirm that calling from God. And so I texted a couple friends uh, that accompany me in this, journey to holiness, right? And I also contact one of my family members and I told him, well, I wanna do the 40 days of fasting. I only say that just because deep down, I really didn't want to do it, but I said it just to get it out the way, right? And so I was like, I really want to do the 40 days of fasting. Could you pray for me so that Jesus give me the grace to do it? And then, oh, of course, sure, sure, sure. But deep down, I already knew that I already had the grace and that I was supposed to start in the next day. So, not to be surprised, Jesus came back with an answer. He said, well, I have already given you the grace. It is up to you to do the rest, right? To say yes, it is up to you. So I had no other escape and I started fasting in the next day. The reason why I was so hesitant to start this fasting was because I knew it was going to be hard. It wasn't going to be in the mountains like the first time. This time, Jesus took me to another desert. He took me to Gethsemane to accompany him in his 3 hours of suffering, pain, right? And so I start the first day, and the first day I start meditating the hours of the Passion. But Jesus doesn't take me to meditate any hour of the Passion. He take me to meditate the hours of the Passion in Gethsemane, the first hour. So I'm right there, I'm reading, I'm meditating, and something wonderful starts to happen. That happened in my first fasting, but this time it was a little more clear, a little more vivid, and he started to reveal sins that I have not confessed. Started to reveal how I postpone him every time, how my lack of prayer and the way I was living was actually hurting him. So, in with all this reveal, right, this enlightenment of consciousness that I was experiencing, I go to confession and I gave glory to God because not only He revealed to me my sins, He also gave me the opportunity to repair, right? He makes all things new if you say yes. And that's how the fasting started. Uh but that's not all. Jesus wanted to go deeper. And he also healed me because I was very wounded because I didn't know my biological father until I didn't meet him, right? Until I was 8 years old. I was raised by my grandma back in Dominican Republic, and nor my mother or my father, lived with me. So I was wounded and I didn't even know about it. But Jesus, he came and he wanted to make all things new, and it was amazing how he revealed me that that I was hurt, right? That I was wounded, that I had this biological wound with my father. And how it happened was, um, at the time or now, I used to be part of the team that coordinate a pre-adolescence group. And in that pre-adolescence group, uh, mainly, mainly there because that was the way that Jesus was, serving through me, mainly priority. But it was also everywhere else. Whenever the Holy Spirit inspired me to do something, to say something to someone, to pray a particular way, you know, whenever I had that enlightenment of, this is my will, I was I was so fearful to act upon that particular thing. I was fearful. And in multiple times, fear defeated me. And I did not act according to God's will. And in other instances, when I managed to beat that temptation with the Virgin Mary, at the moment I felt an abundance of peace. I felt that God's glory descended and everything. But right after that moment of consolation comes, then I was very attacked with doubts and double thinking about, what just happened. Did that just really happen? I was doubting myself. I was doubting God. I was doubting God's action through my actions, right? Through his actions. So I speak to Father Claudio about it, and he tells me, grant me, he doesn't know what I said previously, that I didn't met my father at to the age of 8 years old or anything like that. But he said, well, what's going on is that you're wounded with your relationship with your father. And I said, well, that actually makes sense because I didn't actually meet him till I was 8 years old. So in this process, once I accepted, that I was wounded and that type of thing, I started to heal. And those feelings of guilt, those feelings of doubt, those feelings of nervousness, being scared, they started to go away. Now, Jesus also wanted to do the St. Paul fasting. And before I start doing it, I already knew that Jesus wanted to write a letter to my father. He wants to make all things new. And so, I go to church and I'm in daily mass, and I said to God, well, God, if you want to do this fasting, then go ahead, start. You do it in me. I abandon to your will. I'm not gonna restrain your will in my life. I don't want to do that anymore. So I decided to start, or Jesus decided to do it in me, right? And then the first day, I'm in the Holy Eucharist, and I have this revelation or image. I don't know. I don't quite know how to describe it. And I was at the Holy Eucharist, and Mass has ended, and I'm kneeling down. I'm giving thanks to God, and I just it came to my mind this image of muscles being deteriorated, tissues being deteriorated. Like it was all internally. And I'm in this moment of consolation where I received the Eucharist, and I'm like, wow, God, if that's what you want to do, I'll offer it up to you. But I didn't really know what I was saying. I'll offer it up to you. So, and he says, well, Calvin, this is going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. Are you up for a challenge? And I said, well, yes, I am. I want you to do whatever it is that you want to do. And, whenever God is calling you to do something, he confirms his will multiple times. And he, in our lives, puts people or situations that enlighten us, right? That confirm his will, that assure us that that's the way and that's what it is that he wanted to do. Well, in this occasion, I was fasting with another brother of mine, my friend, Raphael. He was also fasting, and um, we have very good communication. He already knew that I was going to start my St. Paul fasting, and that was my first day. However, when he was buying his portion of bread, Jesus bring to his mind my name. And he doesn't think about it twice, so he just buy another bag of bread for me. All right, okay, I'm just gonna buy it for him. And then I arrive from mass, and I see his car arriving as well. And then he shows up, and he's giving me a bag of bread, and I'm like, bro, what are you doing? This is going to go bad. And he goes, what are you talking about? He's like, oh wow, yes, I remember you're doing your St. Paul fasting. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I forgot. I don't know what I was thinking. And then he goes, well, God, here is a week of food, a week of probation that I have. Show me someone that needs this food, someone in need, so that I can offer this charity for Kelvin's fasting. And he goes back in the car, and Jesus said, "Well, okay, so continue straight, go left, then make a right, and the person that you see, this way, give it to them." And so he does, and then he calls me and he tells me about it, and I'm happy. I'm really happy about it because it's a confirmation for what's coming, right? God said it was hard, so he's giving me a confirmation that it is His will, giving me a confirmation and a reason to persevere, to be resilient. And in the second day, it is important to mention that I had headaches all throughout the three days. The second day, it wasn't really that bad, but it was this constant, communication with the Father, um, instructing me, enlightening me. And then the third day comes around, and this is when it came very, very, very hard, physically speaking. My teeth were hurting, my eyes were hurting, my head was hurting, my fingers were hurting, my nails were hurting, my arms were hurting, my stomach was hurting, my hips, right? My legs, my feet, everything. Every inch of my body was in pain. And I never felt so much pain in my life. I gotta be honest. When I go to mass and I'm driving, I can't really stand straight because I can't resist the pain. I can't. It was so hard. But I have never said, God, I offer this to you in my life. I think I said it like every minute of the day. That was so hard. I tried not to whine about it. I didn't whine about it. All I said was, I offer this up to you. And then night times comes around and the pain intensify even more. And so I call my friend. It's like midnight, 2 or 1 in the morning. I don't know what time it was. I called him, and he hears my voice, and he knows I'm in pain. He knows. All right. So he hears my voice, and I tell him, "Hey, man, I need you to make a recording offering my fasting and offering, you know, the fasting that I'm doing right now." And so he's like, "Okay, man, no worry. I'll do that." And the recording was about supposed to last 10 minutes. Well, God has never beaten in generosity. It was 30 minutes long, and I greatly appreciate it. And it was very helpful. It was offering the fasting for the souls of the purgatory, for those who don't believe. And also, it was also offering my pain. I offer you my headache. I offer you it was offering my pain. And I listened to it a couple of times, and by the time it was like 6 or 7 in the morning, I finally managed to go to sleep, because every time I repeated the recording, God was healing me. He was taking away my pain. He was taking away, you know, my agony, the agony that I was sharing with Him, right? And okay, so I finally managed to go to sleep like around 6 or 7 in the morning. And prior to that, sorry, I forgot to mention that I had to write a letter to my father. And in the third day, before I go to sleep, I start writing the letter, and I contact one of my friends, and I'm like, "Listen, I never done this in my life. I don't know what am I supposed to write. I don't know what I'm gonna do." And she was like, "Just get a piece of paper and let him write in you." And I'm like, "Okay." So I got a piece of paper, and then Jesus, I don't know what I'm gonna say, but you start. And he started writing the letter, and you know so I go, "God, this is really harsh. You really want me to say that?" He says, "Well, do not take away even a common approximation. No, don't take away anything, because that's how I need to get through his heart." All right, so he writes a letter, and it is nighttime, so I read it to my dad before I go to bed, and I and everything that I explain happened, right? And I read him the letter, and he doesn't have any emotional or physical reaction. It is often heard that in this St. Paul fasting, people cry, they hug each other, you know, they have a very intimate and beautiful moment. Well, my dad didn't have anything of that. So I'm like, Jesus, you really embarrassed me. You didn't do nothing. How come you're gonna make me go through this? What is this? And he doesn't say anything. He doesn't say anything. And I'm in my emotions, and I text my friend. I'm like, yo, God didn't do anything. He literally embarrassed me. He Where did he go? And she's like, well, Calvin, remember the fasting first and foremost is for you. And I'm like, well, okay, I got it. However, in the next day, my father texted me and he said, wow, Calvin, that was a very powerful letter. And Jesus has done great things, great works. I was still in my feelings. Still in my feelings. I was like, God, you didn't do anything. And we finally have a conversation, and he said, Kelvin, I want to tell you that the first day you started your St. Paul fasting, I was working and I was with a passenger when he said every word that you wrote down in that piece of paper. I was in the first day, right? Grant, I'm telling you, God confirms everything. And when you read that letter, when you offered that fasting for me, I have been free from chains that I was carrying for more than 10 years. I've been free. I've been healed. And now I feel like I can move onward, spiritually speaking. You know, in the second 40 days, I have to mention that it wasn't easy. It was a roller coaster. It wasn't all consolation. I would say it was quite the opposite in all regards. I didn't feel like praying. I didn't feel like getting up out of my bed. It was very difficult. But through it, Jesus said, Kelvin, I want to give you perseverance because you didn't have it the first time, and that's why you felt. That's why you abandoned everything. I want to give you perseverance. I want to make you stronger. And I want you to accompany in my passion. I want you to accompany in my Gethsemane. Are you willing to do so? And those words were the words that actually kept me going every single day when I wanted to give up. And granted, it was so difficult that although I heard those words almost every day, one night I said, well, the next morning, I am not continuing this. This is so difficult. The first time it was easier. The first time I felt joy. The first time, next day, I am immediately breaking it. I'm not continuing. But in the next morning, when I open my phone, I receive a text from a friend or family member saying, Kelvin, you need to continue that fasting. Mother Mary is with you. And you're not only doing this fasting for yourself, you're doing it for your family. And I have to say that if God would have given me everything He gave me in this second fasting, in the first fasting, I think I would have died of joy. It was too much. I wasn't ready. God just did great things, and He continued doing it. Till this day, I still see fruits, still see His glory. And one of the things that Jesus healed me too was from my pride. Sometimes I want to do things seeking others' approval. Sometimes I acted, if I sang a song, if I, read a gospel scripture or whatever the case may be, I was deep down, I didn't know that I was doing it for my glory instead of his glory. And slowly through these 40 days, God was helping me to see. God was walking with me in this journey of life. My whole life, I was never left alone, but I didn't recognize him next to me. I postponed him every single time, and I wasn't aware how much he cared for me, how much I hurt him. And that's why, from now on, every moment of my life, I want to live in his will and I want to do his will. And finally, if anything sticks to you, with you for this testimony, I think is not to be afraid. If God is calling you to do the fasting, if God is calling you to do something, he's calling you for your own benefit. He's calling you for your own good. He loves you more than what you can love yourself. And suffering and whatever it might be, do not be afraid. I am with you. He's with you. He's not going to let you down. He's willing. He's willing to heal you. He's willing to do whatever it is that he wants to do in your life. Are you willing to let him do it? Are you willing to accept his love? Are you willing to let him finally the number one place in your life? Are you willing? If so, don't be like me and postpone it. If so, right now, right after this testimony, right now this second, say, Jesus, I want to start over with you. I want you to take control. I no longer want to live. I want you to live in me. For now, for every second that's coming. Because with you, life is much better.
Take this book with you and get to know what true love is. And with your donation, help us change lives.